Hello and welcome back. Everything is still chaotic, but we're hopefully going to pull through this week. We made it through the first heat wave of the year here in the north corner of the Pacific Northwest, and now we're in another rainy patch. My apartment doesn't have air conditioning, so these cool off periods of rain are amazing. So, what's everyone reading? Since it's summer, I'm slowly going back to books I've started and stopped for various reasons. I'm very selective about books. If I can find a personal connection to the author, that seems to help build my interest. It's now that I'm older, that seems to be more important in keeping my interest in a book than when I was younger. I don't read fantasy anymore. I don't have the patience for it, and I need something more practical and realistic. I also don't have time to follow trends and keep up with the latest books and TV shows. But I have been hearing more and more about a genre called romantasy and fairy smut that people are upset about. And to be honest, the name is incredibly redundant. Isn't romance already just fantasy? I mean, it's been around forever, and to me, the genre sounds like it's meant to be useful and utilitarian on the surface, but based on reviews and description, it sounds like it's taking the worst of two very specific genres and smashing them together, which is such a waste, in my opinion. I'm not saying you can't enjoy it. I think that would be more worthwhile, though, if romance were split into two genres, separating sexual fantasy and actual romance, the emotional bonds and connections people make together. And welcome to the Burnt Out Podcast. The idea of romance being a weak prelude to sex doesn't sit right with me. It's fake, it's gross, and not at all how a majority of people actually experience it. It has nothing to do with sexual attraction and everything to do with friendship, caring for one another, building trust, and demonstrating that that affection, love, and devotion are actions more than just feelings and sexual gratification. Romance is an aesthetic, an experience all its own. I'm the type of person who would describe The Left Hand of Darkness as a tragic sci-fi romance. The way Gently is left mourning the memory of Hearth and everything they shared, it's haunting. It leaves an emotional mark on the reader of grief, sadness, and longing. To me, that's one kind of romance. There's an entire emotional gamut that doesn't involve sex or romance that is rarely explored. It's why I enjoy reading the work of the manga group Clamp. They explore a variety of relationships where there's definitely emotional tension, and sexual aesthetics provide both comic relief and physical tension. But sex doesn't happen. It's not the point or within the scope of a story that is primarily asexual in nature, and they don't bill themselves as traditionally romantic either. When you're only focused on the artificial duality of sex and romance, you miss the opportunity to see people in interesting and bizarre relationships. Forced to bond, they work together while hating each other, and that hate doesn't turn to love, or or they have a kind of magnetic attraction that is alluring, but ultimately doesn't benefit either of them. It just feels more realistic that way. Enemies to lovers never seem healthy or real. If I hate someone, it's for a very good reason. They've done or said something horribly offensive, cruel and violent, or hinted at it. They might try to hide it, but eventually they get caught and end up in prison or causing a tragedy. In my reality, anyone trying to have a relationship like that usually ends up being severely abused or dead. I think about all the people who thought they could smooth violence and emotional abuse over with love without serious intervention and life changes. It doesn't go well and definitely doesn't belong in romance. If you've read Tokyo Babylon, then you understand how trying to see all relationships through the lens of romance has serious consequences. You miss the red flags and can wind up dead. And that brings us to what I'm currently reading. Currently, I'm dipping into the writing of Canadian author L. M. Montgomery once again. She's known for Emily of New Moon and Anne of Green Gables. My grandmother bought me a set for my 11th birthday, and I read all 12 over the course of a summer. As an adult, I'm reconnecting with how haunting and tragic her work actually is. I've always admired the balance of the romantic ideals the characters have and what the settings suggest versus the very practical issues of real life that seem to intrude and spoil their fantasies. Montgomery's writing is very bittersweet, comic tragic in its displays of the very messy lives of her characters. Everyone has the ability to be both very kind and extremely cruel and petty. Children acting out the pettiness and selfish prejudices of adults is the most tragic thing ever, and when they think for themselves, it feels amazing. The stories might be set in beautiful locations, but they're all about family and social relationships. You can see the generational traumas, disability, and mental illness that reside in them fairly plainly. It's not hidden. When you read Ella Montgomery, you have to lose the idea of her work being completely idealistic. She had a very stressful life, struggling with her physical and mental health, caring for her husband, who had his own mental breakdown. It's been suggested by her surviving granddaughter, who concluded after reading through her grandmother's journals that Montgomery coped not only through her writing, but through drug addiction, and died of an overdose. So there's a lot that remains to be unpacked in her work that discerning readers will hopefully take into account and use to understand her life's work. And embracing this realistic side of Lucy Maud Montgomery, hopefully future writers will give themselves more grace as they themselves struggle in life. I find her work both tragic and comforting that way. Let me know in the comments if daily reading is still accessible to you. There's such an enormous amount of stigma around not reading enough. Like there's a nutritional scale out there that people have to meet. Do subtitles count? News articles? You never really know. I used to read almost non-stop when I was younger. I'd sit and read during classes at school. After COVID, though, and burnout, that changed. During my spectacular burnout during the summer of 2018, I lost the ability to comprehend words for about a month. I had to lay in a dark, silent room for weeks until I could even function again. I was so exhausted. My ability to read obviously came back, but alas, none of the joy or passion for it. It feels like just another job now, unfortunately. And that can be hard to explain to people, especially if they hold the expectation that people can't or shouldn't lose their passion. They don't understand why something can suddenly become tiring and tedious. But I'm still a poet, a writer. It's just that my relationship with words and language has changed. I'm much more aware that I'm simply a translator for my thoughts and feelings. Words feel more like a foreign language that I don't quite grasp, that I have to study in order to keep up and understand. And when my energy runs out, I stop understanding entirely. Thankfully, that doesn't occur often. Personally, reading printed materials has become harder as I age. With my vision, the printed lines swerve and are wavy. It makes it hard to focus, but with online text, that doesn't happen. This is why I prefer Kindle. I can adjust the fonts and paper colors so that it's easier on my eyes. I remember when people were upset about paper use and those who bought physical books wasting paper when you could use an e-reader and save the environment. Well, now there's a lot of unnecessary shame thrown at people who use e-readers because of various legal issues and business practices that disadvantage libraries and authors. It's a complicated mess. So, in my opinion, the world is big enough to allow people to accommodate themselves without a fuss, whether they physically need an e-reader to access literature or prefer to read physical books and experience sensory fulfillment. It shouldn't be a drama. Now, when it comes to what you read or watch, there's a constant cultural drive to keep reading, watching, and doing that takes away the autonomy of the audience, their ability to enjoy a performance or book on their own time when they're ready. Being given time and space is a rare gift these days. Many of us are so busy setting aside time to consciously read takes serious work and dedication. Writers are always told to read others' work, but no judgment here if you find that extremely hard. The, the disinterest in what other people have to say can be so visceral that you literally have to write your own stories and poems, then read other work, or you feel like you'll explode. That's how it is for me anyway. I know I'm ready to write again and create when I feel like I hate everything out there that's already available. I'd like to end today's episode with a shout out to Scottish autistic author Elle McNichol and her books. Elle writes slice of life, science fiction, fantasy for middle grade audiences, and has recently branched out into YA romance. I'm not a romance reader, but her writing is so good, I think it would be worth checking out. In her middle school books, Elle has really managed to capture the emotional intensity and loneliness of being the lone autistic kid in your school. The world can feel very cold and distant when you don't have connections. It brought out a lot of emotions for me. Last year, I read A Kind of Spark and Show Us Who You Are, and watched the BBC television adaptations of A Kind of Spark Both seasons were really great and opened up that world for me. The books had a very different tone to them than the show. The world of the characters felt a lot colder and isolated, while the TV show created an aspirational reality that was warm and gentle. The main characters were celebrated rather than ignored. Everyone in the village of Juniper looked out for each other. Problems were solved, and life would work out. It was a different experience from the book entirely, which was very bittersweet and sharp in its reality at times, where things don't get smoothed over and people aren't welcome and celebrated. Seeing both versions of the story felt very important. They both supported the idea that you can make reality better for everyone through your actions and building intentional friendships. It's through respectful connections and love that people survive this world. And that's it for today. Don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe. You can find this podcast on Spotify and YouTube. Join my Patreon if you'd like to support the channel. This is Brooke. Stay safe and take care.